Hello people, and welcome to another knife review here on A Dose of Drew. Tonight I have the B'Yond EDC Eurus. That's E-U-R-U-S for those who realize that I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. 14C28N blaze steel. This is the black micarta handle version. As you can see, contoured scales. Not heavy contouring, but pretty good. It's a fair amount. It's fairly thick in the middle, but it has a lot of curve to it. Not a bad way to go. Quick bit of specs here: 7.4 inches overall, and the little ruler here says we're pretty close to 7.25 or 7.3, so close enough. 3.25 inches on the blade. Well, that's about right. I would say it's closer to 3 1/8, but either way it works. It is a nice high flat grind. It is not a saber grind. There's a bit of recurve in there. Weight is also nice and light, in case you haven't noticed. Deep carry clip here. Ball bearing actions in the pivot. Nice large flipper for some leverage. And 3 ounces is the claimed. 3.04 on the measured here. 4/100ths of an ounce is a few grams. I'll take that as within the accuracy of the measuring device. A little bit of a sharpening choil that they do miss just tiniest bit with the smile. There we go. Smile on the edge there, right? You got just a little bit of a smile right there on the that last little bit of recurve, right? And then there's some recurve that it kind of rolls into this nice broad, nice slicey shape. And actually, again, this is a $50-something knife. I believe at Blade HQ it's $52 right now. Nice EDC brand. 14C28N, when it has a good heat treat, is a great EDC. Budget EDC steel. It has really good edge retention, great toughness, and pretty good corrosion resistance. All right, so getting onto theirs, we're getting into the design about it. Before I go too much into the aesthetics, let's have a couple of comparison shots here. So just to get the big boys out of the way, the Paramilitary 2, as you can see, this is much closer in size to the Para 3 than the Paramilitary 2. And that's true for all of the large knives, so I'm only going to do the smaller versions. If you really need to know how big the large ones are, here's a Para 2. There's a lot of stuff on there. I'll do at least one more here. It's smaller than the big boys. Just to give you an idea, we'll go right into the Kershaw. So we have the Kershaw Blur. As you can see, it is even slightly shorter than the Kershaw Blur, which is closer to a mid-size knife on that one. And not just any leak, but a random leak. Much closer to the leak in size, intended purpose, and all of that. So we're just going to leave it with the small ones here as a bit of a... So first things first, there is the Rat 2. My personal one in purple, the R2-D2. That isn't in full R2-D2 colors. I know, it's almost sacrilege. Here it is, next to the small Feldspar. Very close to both of these in size, just general handling. There's bigger choils on these two than the others. The choil is actually closer in size to the leak, while giving you a lot of curve to the blade on that one. And one more here. There's the Civivi Elementum. As you can see, it is slightly longer, and with a little bit more cutting edge than the Civivi. And the Ritter Hogue as a, I don't want to say proxy, but similar to the Benchmade Grip Chilean in size and all the stuff. This one's the Mini Hogue. As you can see, the Mini Hogue is slightly smaller. So you get quite a bit of knife for what you got here. But as you can see, as it compares to my Weenar, well, not quite as long, as both thicker and just as girthy. Even though this one's got a little bit more curve, both in angles and thickness. I believe my Weenar is just slightly larger. Anyway, that being said, the aesthetics of it are really cool. It's got a unique EDC shape that isn't super scream like tactile or tactical or tactical or anything, while still having that little bit of recurve there that allows you to have a little bit of purchase on anything that would be fibrous. You got this angle there with this long sweeping that gives you this big belly section for sliciness, for small slicey cuts, while having an acute tip that is well supported by thick steel, and starts to come back to a more robust geometry right at the tip. It's well done. That little bit of finger choil or a little bit of sharpening choil is just broad enough that in the pinch grip, which this with the large pivot collar and everything, and its narrow size and low handle definitely encourages. You can get a fair amount. It's not hard use. Let's see if I can get it. The clip has a spot that, while nice to get in there, does dig in a little bit. It's more comfortable in the pinch grip where your fingers can sort of miss it. So it's not super hard use here where you're going to rub it, but the size of it should let you know that. It's comfortable for 4 fingers here. It's even better in a pinch grip. Again, you can get up, pick a sliver, make a small cut, get a fair amount in there. If you had to cut a rope or anything, you could actually saw pretty good from the slicey to the robust, as well as have just the normal push. It's a pretty good blade shape, and especially at this price point, which I usually don't try not to get into, but it goes good. The aesthetics are well balanced. You can see that there's a pivot point and there's a lobe here, a lobe there. It gives you a nice balance to it in looks. The ergonomic design part of it is pretty good. The aesthetics are nice. I don't care. I'm fine with having a milled out spine. I know a lot of people don't like it. I think it's great that you get an extra plate along with here, so that's actually really, really cool. It also means that this screw is probably the same length as the other screws. So if you ever do lose one, you actually have a spare built in, and you can ditch the plug if that's what you like. But that's a whole nother bit. You would still need some amount there, but it's nice that they do that at this price point. Not everything does. A lot of them will leave it milled out to save the money. A couple of cents on some metal plates went a long way in this particular case for how it goes. And I mean, really, the mechanics of it are hard to fault. It's a ball bearing flipper that is well done. The detent is nice. Oops. Like so many other things, you forget on camera what you're trying to do here. Yeah, it's a snappy. It's not fully drop shut, but this is without oil or anything, and I am pretty sure you could get quite a bit, a little bit smoother action with some KPL or something in there. And yeah, it's really nice. The stop pin is hidden. So you see some shouldering with some smaller pivot geometry in there, which isn't so bad. It's actually pretty nice. It does give them a little leeway in some production tolerances, while still giving a fairly robust construction. On this one, I the mechanics are good. The design, I like it. It's different enough that you can recognize it, and while still being practical enough that the design cues don't reduce the practicality. I'm a huge fan of function before form in so many things. I do like it to look good, but I like it to work good more. So there's all that in there. And the noteworthy points on this is really that it's a low price point. It's a 14C28N. It's got black micarta and stainless steel. You see a lot of other places charging a little bit more for micarta, and it's nice to see that you can get some good black, I believe that's canvas micarta, at this price point. Its design is unique enough while still being classic. The lobed handle is nothing new. Nice oversized pivot, a little bit of recurve, but they do indeed bring it together in something that, while having no real new pieces, feels new. I like that about it. That's pretty noteworthy. The design and everything like that in such a small price point is a good knife. The mechanics are solid. The steel is pretty good. I've had no complaints. I've used this blade on several different occasions. It seems to have a good heat treat from my anecdotal use. So it at least has a fairly decent heat treat on it, which is always good. And for its intended purpose, the company's called B'Yond EDC. And it really is just a good, solid EDC carry. It's 3 ounces for a little over 3 inches of blade. You got a deep carry option. While not perfect, isn't bad. You don't have recessed screws, but it is a pocketed clip. So the non-recessed screws give you a little bit of grip on the ham as well as the pinch. It does have a little bit of horizontal on the lip for the clip, but it's not a lot, and it's something that really you can get around. As far as at this price point, it's great. The extra space on the collar is really, really cool. You get ball bearing pivot, which isn't so unusual. You can find, just to provide an example, you can find other relatively cheap ball bearing ones where they put the money in, right? We've seen it. This isn't new. This is something that should be standard in today's market. So you do have that. And as a regular EDC, this is great. This is such a good little knife, right? 14C28N, one of the best budget steels out there. If you ask me, a well heat treated D2, 14C28N, and I'll even go so far as to say 9CR18 are some of the best budget steels out there. I'm not against 8CR13 or AUS8. They're basically the same thing. Or even AUS10. I just find them to be a little bit chippy. And D2 definitely is, but for that little bit of chippiness, you get a whole lot more edge retention. So yeah, when it comes to some of the budgets, I'm not as big a fan of the AUS series as I am something like 14C28N, but AUS 10 is probably my better option there. I do kind of like the 9CR, honestly, better when it comes to that for both the corrosion resistance and its toughness ratio. But that being said, 14C28N, the steel on this knife, great choice. Thick steel. It's thin behind the edge. They grind it down to a really, really fine. Let's see if I can even get that. Really, really fine. Don't know if I can provide the proper background. You can see how thin that is right before the secondary bevel. It's got a pretty good edge, and it's robust. It's a tough steel, so you're going to see some good chip resistance. Man, that's really hard to beat. Which the cost value at $52. There's other $50, $60 knives you can get that have arguably better values. You know, you can get some knives that are in the $40 to $50 range that really do give this knife a run for its money, if not beat it in many, many, many ways. I mean, this little group it's sitting in here is approximately, they're near the same price point. So it's a heavy duty field. And quite honestly, if I'm looking at the field for a similar price, the CJRB Feldspar is a better knife for my money, but it doesn't come in 14C28N. There's more curvature, I shouldn't say curvature, but there's more curvature to the contouring on the B'Yond EDC, and it has thicker blade stock. I like the extra finger choil, especially on the smaller size. But that's just it. It's different enough in this group that you can recognize it. There's something to be had with this knife that the others don't give you. And it might be a stylistic difference for certain things. It might be the fact that they have a plate. It might be that the 14C28N, which the Kershaw is more expensive and is the only other one with the same steel. There's lots of things that might sway you in purchasing this, but the reality is there's enough of a difference in this knife to warrant it when the prices are so close. If you're willing to be within $5 or $10 of these other knives, and you're like, but I like it so much, you're not giving up anything to choose this knife. And that's really the important point to get across here. It's still a well-built, robust, everyday carry folding knife with ball bearings in the pivot, a good stain-resistant steel, great action, and at a reasonable $50-something price. Yeah, it's competitive. It's an absolutely competitive arena. But this knife does bring something different. As you can see, it doesn't quite look like the competition. It has all of the good qualities, but it's just different in a really, really good way. It is truly just B'Yond the EDC in that they bring together a lot of good parts to make a really great sum of those parts. And there's a little bit of synergy here that goes into the design where they did a really, really good design with really good parts, and it makes it that much better. I knew the price of this knife going into it, so I was looking to expect a budget value, and I was not disappointed. This is a budget value knife. This is not the SE Chirp, right, at $20-something. This is not a QSP Penguin at $35. There's other values out there, right? There's some really, really strong values out there that this knife is going to have to compete against. And there's nothing wrong with that. But again, like I said, it brings its own flavor to the table. And if it's something you like, you won't be disappointed. If you're looking at this going, God, is it worth it? It's as good as the other knives. It's well put together. It's got really, really good fit and finish. There's tiniest bits of over things, but the scales fit really, really nicely. The cutouts, while rough, match nicely. The contouring is spot on. While they could have made the finger choil just a little bit larger to accommodate a better pinch grip, it would have taken away a little bit of that recurve notion, which this thing really adds a little bit of the look to it that others don't have. And it's small enough of a recurve that you can still sharpen it with something like with a work sharp. So it's not so much that you have to have the tiniest little cone sharpeners and go at an angle and then blah, blah, blah. You can do it on a relatively smaller one. The curvature, the radius of the curvature is such that you can actually get by with it. I have done it myself, hand sharpening on the work sharp bit just to see if it would work. So yeah, it's something you can do, and it comes shaving sharp out of the box, apexed. It's not the roughest grind. If it's a 600, it's a pretty smooth 600, but I wouldn't put it past that. Maybe an 800 at best, but it really looks closer to a 600 grit, which is really, really nice to see. They do a good job. And that really brings me up to it's a damn nice knife. It really is. It's got good aesthetics. The design is one that is unique and brings something new to the table. I like the aesthetics. Again, there's a balance and a symmetry to it that is appealing to the eye, as well as it just harkens to kind of that whole knife, right? It's got a point, even if it's not the most acute point. I mean, honestly, it could be a good Orncliffe if you flipped it over, for that matter. It's not the most acute point, but it is definitely acute enough to be useful. It's also robust. And while it is not the thickest of knives, you can see the stop pin there is not the thickest of stuff. This isn't a chopper. The pivot around there, this isn't made to like hack down trees. And it shouldn't be expected to. But the mechanics for what it is, great. It is controllably drop shut friendly. Again, this is without any oil or anything on there. This is after use. Haven't cleaned it up. In fact, I would dare say that it is just the tiniest bit off center from my use. We'll fix that right now. It is T8, by the way. Not everywhere. Those are T6s. Yeah. Just a hair of a turn. There we go. And we are recentered. So all of my playing with it had given it just a little bit. And there, the action is more like it. So controllably drop shut. Check. $52. Mechanics are great. The noteworthy points is its value. It's quality to value ratio. The cost to value. That is actually this knife's real noteworthy points. They did a good job at a reasonable price. You get a visual cue in that pivot that lets you know, hey, this is the middle. There's symmetry to it with the lobes and the recurve and all of that, as well as the single line across that gives it a balance visually, functionally, and a lot of other stuff. That's unusual in this case to have something so good. Is it going to be one of those things that replaces things like the Rat 2 or the Penguin, or probably not. Like, those came out, made a splash, were a great value, then continue to be, and this isn't going to necessarily become a new standard, but it lives up to the new standard and even gives you a little bit of something extra for it in the design and the execution. So its intended purpose as a B'Yond EDC is just I hate to use the term gentleman's EDC. It's just, but a modern EDC. This isn't going to be something you're out there hacking branches with, but opening packages, opening letters, cutting small bits of twine, being able to shave a stick down to, cook s'mores or hot dogs out at the campsite. Something like that, this will work great for. This is a fantastic knife. In fact, doing something like carving little green sticks into a sharp point is something that recurve and that blade right there will do a fine job of. You can catch it right in the recurve and get a nice, instead of having to do that, the cut will help keep it centered right in that little bit of recurve right where it's good to do that with. So yeah, there's little things about it that it'll do a great job on. And with that being said, I'm going to really come to an end on this, and that it's a really good knife. I want to give it 3.5 stars on that. But I'm probably going to give it 4. They actually did a really good job, and there's nothing to complain about. Take that back. The worst complaint I can see is that squared off lanyard hole. There we go. You can see it that way. Does not have anything that softens those edges. So you've got sharp edges where you're expecting someone to put like freaking rope or something through. That's probably the one thing. But if you're a real lanyard person, you're absolutely can't do without it. You can wrap a lanyard through the clip there, right? Or take the off. But there is a lanyard hole if you're so inclined to use it. It's not the best. For the price, it's good. It's definitely something I can recommend. It's just a good little knife. And at not too, in a world where everything is going to go up in price, because it is going to get harder for us to get everything. There's just no way around it, you guys. The world had a hiccup. We had to try and figure out how we're going to do this. And it's hard to get everything. When there's a hiccup, there's ripples. And we're feeling it. It's going to get a little bit worse before it gets better. There's a lot of things coming down the pike. As winter hits, a lot of people are going to feel it. So, but at $52, this presents a really good value in a world where everything else is going up. This is a pretty solid value for what you get. And I don't know much about the company, but from what I've seen and from what I've experienced in this knife, they do a good job. I don't know if it actually is 14C28N. I don't doubt it from the performance I've seen, but it could be. I mean, 14C28N performance, unless you get it real down there, could be mimicked with good heat treat on other steel. So that being said, taken at its face, 14C28N with a decent heat treat, micarta handle, stainless steel liner lock. Man, ball bearings in the pivot, great action, and really thin behind the edge and a decent weight. 4 stars, and definitely recommendable. That is the B'Yond EDC Eurus. And this has been a dose of Drew. I'm going to wind it down with that a little bit. I am, of course, said Drew. So go ahead, take a look at this video, watch it twice, comment as much as you like. Be mindful of side effects. Remember to come back and subscribe. This has been a dose of Drew. I am said Drew. You guys have a great rest of your night.